Okay, so we're going to enter in our field names. So down here in this list of fields, we enter in all the elements of a customer, the data entity customer we want to store. So I'm going to just enter them in. Now, for now, let's just leave that ID here. We'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to store the customer's title. Okay, I'm going to store the customer's first name, the customer's surname. Okay, I'm just pressing tab to just tab through those things. Yeah, the email, the date of birth, tab, and the customer's gender. Okay, so now it gives us a chance to talk a little bit about data types. Okay, so these are the kind of box that you've just set up to store that data, this kind of field. Now, imagine this like a sort of, you remember those kids' toys that, so maybe you've got a younger brother or sister, or maybe if you can remember them. It was a box and it had like kind of star shapes and triangle shapes on the sides, and you could only put a square into the square box. Yeah. So if you think of that analogy, what you've created here in that field is you've created a hole or a box that could only take a certain kind of thing. So you need to make sure that that kind of thing is set up correctly. So let's have a simple example. Here's a simple example. The customer's title, let's change that to just title. The title is things like Mr., Mrs., Professor, Archbishop, whatever it might be. That kind of data is always going to be text. Yeah. So we set up that field so that the data type is text. And if you click on the data type here, you can see the default is short text. Now, if you look down here in these more advanced settings of that field, you can see that the size of this field is 255 characters. Now, that's quite big. Now, you've got to ask yourself, do I really need that many characters to store customers' titles? Chances are you don't. And it's important because that kind of tells you how big that box or that that field is going to be. Now, if it's 255 characters and you only put 2 characters in it, it's still 255 characters in size, which doesn't seem like that much data to be wasting until you start thinking about how many records you might want to be storing in that database. Okay, you could be storing hundreds and millions of records, and so that little inefficiency multiplied up can turn into quite a problem. So you do need to think about the size of your field, and in some cases just make a decision. So for example, when I'm saying title, I might say all my titles can only be 4 characters long. I'm not going to allow them to be any more because it doesn't really matter, maybe. Now, if I go on to first name, here, again, it's a text field, but 255 characters. I don't think there's any names that are 255 characters. But if I left it as 10 characters, maybe that is getting a bit short. So maybe I do need to just make sure that it's always going to be fine and put in 50 characters. Tell you what, Google the longest first name in the world and see what that might be. Then that'll let you figure that out. Same with surname. We're going to put it at a reasonable length of characters that's going to make sure that every first name can always get in. Okay, so those are text fields. The other text field that we've got here, the gender, yeah, that's going to store male or female, so 4 or 5 characters maybe. Now, next type to discuss is the email. Okay, email is also a text field because it's going to contain, it's not really text, it's the actual term is called alphanumeric. Alpha being letters, numeric being numbers. So basically, that kind of field, that data type, means that it can take anything. You can throw in characters, you can throw in letters, you can throw in numbers, and it will just store it without doing anything. It doesn't need to do any calculations or anything, so alphanumeric. So an email address needs to be that because you need to be able to store text, you need to be able to store the @ symbol, you need to be able to store numbers possibly that come in people's email addresses. So we'll leave it like that. We'll just make sure that we change this because nobody has a 255 character long email. Date of birth is obviously going to be a date. So let's change it to date. Okay, and then we can choose our format of date down here. Not many people know their birthday in terms of the hour and minute that they were born, so that's probably not the best choice. So we can either go for a long date, which actually shows the month, or we can go for a short date, which just uses the numbers. So any of those formats is your choice. And then we're pretty much good on that. What we just need to talk about is this really important first field. This field is called a primary key field. Okay, that'll be in the next video. Next video, all about primary key fields.